what is cover one? Cover one is a man coverage, but it's a little bit more complicated and complex than cover zero. If we think back to cover zero is a coverage where you can get to it in a lot of different ways. But once the ball is snapped, you kind of have to run it one way. When cover one is really the exact opposite post-snap. There's a lot of things defenses can do with cover one. They can send an extra guy, or they can drop him back in coverage. We're going to be taking a look at two examples that do each one. In our clip number one, we're going to see an example where the Seattle Seahawks, they send their linebacker on a blitz. So they only have one deep, and that's the cover one. In clip two, the extra man actually stays in coverage. And he's basically the intermediate to short person that's responsible for reading the quarterback's eyes and kind of filling the middle of the field for the defense. Most likely in a short yardage situation, you're going to get the extra man on a blitz. But if it's, a third and 8 and you like to run man coverage, if you don't want to put pressure on, cover one robber with a zone in the intermediate to short and a deep zone is probably your best way to go. Now, how do we read cover one before we snap the ball? Well, let's get into some film. Let's look at an example of an NFL defense running man cover one. Let's see how Tom Brady's able to identify the coverage pre-snap and execute post-snap. So the first indicator Tom Brady's going to be looking for to identify the coverage is how many safeties are deep. You can clearly identify that there's one safety for Seattle's defense on this play. So our immediate thoughts knowing that are either man cover one or cover three. After we identify how many safeties are deep in the defense, we can then move on to cornerback and secondary alignment. So like we do in every other coverage video, let's take a look individually, corner by corner and safety by safety to see what their alignment tells us about the coverage they're running. Let's start at the top half of the screen and work our way down. So at the top half of our screen, when we're analyzing defensive back alignment, we have to look at the eyes, the hip angle, and the leverage that the cornerback is playing on the receiver. So knowing that, we can obviously see that the corner is playing inside leverage of the receiver, and his hips and eyes are square directly on the receiver that he's straight across from. Knowing those three things, we are able to put together that that is a man coverage look from the left outside cornerback. Now let's go to the slot cornerback. What are his eyes, hips, and what is his alignment telling us? Well, he's also a little bit inside leveraged again. His hips and eyes are also facing directly at the receiver, which we saw at the top, which means that he's giving us another man coverage look. So Tom Brady's able to put together that the two corners to his left are in man coverage. Moving to the strong safety, we see him squared up, and if we look at his eyes and hip angle, he's looking right at the down tight end, which happens to be Rob Gronkowski. He's kind of in this no man's land for a safety. He's not showing blitz, and he's not in any position to cover a zone. Also, what we know about man coverage is safeties are usually directly over the top of the tight end or slot receiver that they're covering. So knowing that, we're able to put together that he's most likely in man coverage. Moving on to the bottom corner, he's giving us the same exact look that the two top corners and the strong safety is giving us. So we're able to put together that all the defensive backs except for the free safety are giving us a man coverage look pre-snap. Last defensive back we're going to take a look at is that free safety in the deep middle of the field. How does he tell us for sure that this is cover one? Well, let's look at his alignment. He's not near the line of scrimmage, so we know he can't be in any sort of run support or he can't be blitzing. And also, he's not directly over a man or staring at one of the receivers or tight ends. So if he's not blitzing or in run support and he's not playing man coverage, he's playing the deep middle of the field and he's going to be reading Tom Brady's eyes. Now, based off of just those things alone, we're able to conclude that this pre-snap is a cover one man look. But another helpful indicator is if a receiver motions and the defensive back goes with them, that's another tell that the defense is playing man coverage, which is something that we see in this play. So how do the Patriots attack the cover one? Well, they know they need to get rid of the ball quick because there's an extra man coming on a blitz, given that a safety's walked up and playing man coverage. The offense knows the defense is playing inside leverage, so Tom Brady sends Julian Edelman in motion in order to get inside of the outside corner, and he's able to cross the field and pick up a really big first down for the Patriots. Let's take a look at a different version of cover one. The Florida Gators get to cover one with two safeties high this time. We call this disguising the coverage. They do this because every quarterback is usually taught that when he sees two safeties high, it's either cover two man, cover two zone, or a version of cover four. But in this case, they use pre-snap movement and also post-snap movement to disguise that they are actually in cover one man. So we identified how many safeties are over the top. Now we have to look at the three corners alignment to see what they tell us about the coverage. Well, if we take a look at the three corners, all of them are giving us pretty much the same look. They all have square hips and their eyes are directly on their man. But if we focus in on the slot cornerbacks, just by the way they're aligned, that can hint for the quarterback and the rest of the offense that they're probably going to be getting into some sort of man cover one look. Let's take a look at the top slot cornerback. Do you see something different in his stance? Although his eyes and hips are facing towards the receiver, if we take a look at his feet are staggered. Those staggered feet tells me he really doesn't want to play man coverage straight up on the slot receiver. And also when we take a look behind him, we see that safety is right over the top of that slot receiver. And what we know about man coverage is if a safety is right over a tight end or slot receiver, that he's most likely going to be playing man coverage on him. So with his safety in the position he's in and that slot cornerback kind of lining up the way he is, it looks like he could be coming on a blitz. Now if we take a look at the bottom slot receiver and look how the corner's playing him, we can see that he's square up looking at the receiver, but he's playing outside leverage of the receiver this time. Usually in man coverage, corners like to play inside leverage because they like to force the receiver to the sideline. But in this case, he knows he's going to have deep help by the safety, and he knows he's going to have short to intermediate help by the middle linebackers. So any slant route or quick in route that receiver does, he knows he has help on his inside, which actually allows him to play outside leverage. Now that we read the defense pre-snap, we have to see their post-snap movement to really confirm what we saw on our pre-snap look. And what we see post-snap really confirms what we did see in red on our pre-snap. The safety on the snap of the ball comes down on the top slot receiver to play man coverage. That slot corner that was guarding the top slot receiver is sent on a blitz. While that's happening, we also see the bottom free safety gaining depth and reading the quarterback's eyes in the deep middle of the field. And now if we look at the corners and the people that were playing man coverage, we can tell that they're chasing, and some even have their backs turned toward the quarterback, which would mean that they will be playing man coverage on that play. Now, one of the weaknesses of man coverage is the quarterback running, because like I said, all the corners and people in coverage have their back turned to the quarterback and are looking directly at the receiver. But what's powerful about mixing man coverage and zone coverage is the two zone defenders have eyes on the quarterback. So if the quarterback does decide to run, they can read the quarterback and launch up to the line of scrimmage to make the tackle before the quarterback makes a big gain. And that's what we see here. Well, I hope you picked up something about cover 2 in this video that you can use during your season. If you're interested in wanting to know more about different coverages, look in the playlist below.